Accomer. And then when you're talking about windows, your hope is that you're going to at least double the R value of all those windows. So I do expect to see some savings in two areas. One is the money that we tend to spend on fixing piecemeal whenever the roof starts to leak. And the other part is to see some savings in terms of energy costs or energy spent. My only caveat to that is for those of you who drive a car is I'm just scared to see what's happening at the pumps. So my expectation would be that unless we hit some really big pockets of oil in the next 6 months or so and they come online, my scary scenario says that we're going to see increases in our cost of energy. So even though we may use less energy, the energy that we use, it's going to cost us more. What the balance of that's going to be, I try to play a conservative game, and I'm hoping that we break even. And it's why I did not include any savings along those lines as part of the analysis, because honestly, I don't know if our savings will be big enough to actually create additional funding that would be available for other things, or whether we'll just be breaking even against the rise in the cost of energy. So although I believe that if we didn't fix the schools, we would not only be paying to keep trying to fix it as it breaks, but we'd also be paying additional monies for energy that we're sending out the deck or out the windows. So that I would have had to include it as an additional cost versus perhaps now just breaking even. Now, would I like to see us get some savings that actually can move funding back into the classroom? That would be the best case scenario. We're about a month away from having the designers being chosen by the subcommittee, the building subcommittee for the school committee. And when that happens, one of their jobs, as required by the projects, is for them to analyze what the energy savings would be. So my hope is at that point, we may be able to have additional information that we can use to either say, we're going to see some savings that is going to allow us to move money back into the classroom, or we're going to break even, or even with the savings, their analysis may say we're still going to see some energy increases that are not going to be covered by the savings, and we have to account for that in the budget. So at this point, that part's still fluid in my mind. I'm hoping for a break even, and that's just because that's how I like to think about it. In terms of the line item cuts, there could be some additional cuts that go into some of the things we're doing this year. In other words, the idea behind the budget that I presented is taking what we did this year and moving it into next year. Same people, same programs, not changing those things. At this point, I did ask the administrators to talk with me as to whether they think any of those things should be cut, and to be honest, we didn't come up with any. Now, if school committee or people in the public say, hey, why don't you look at this area or this program that we think we don't need to have at all, that'd be a way to cut. But at this point, it'd be not doing something that we did this year.
Through the chair. Mr. Wyrie. Dr. Colley, would it be advisable to maybe revisit the school choice and open it back up again?
My only concern is when you open up school choice, and we will have to make a vote of that come June. The state requires us to vote yes or no. The only concern that I have with school choice is we have been increasing class size just across the board. And the problem is, once you open school choice, whoever you let in the door gets to stay until they graduate or until they, on their own volition, move or go back to their district. And if there's the possibility that you would allow, because it's a blind open welcome door, then you could have somebody come in with some needs that would cost a lot of money, much more than what we would get in terms of reimbursement from the state for their presence here in our schools. So the high school has, I know last year the high school said, I think the danger outweighs the benefit. We could explore that and just keep your fingers crossed.
Just for a point of, we've never had any student come into the district that needed services, though, correct?
I think we've had a couple actually.
Okay.
They're no longer with us or won't be with us after this year.
Dr. Colley, you talked about on the self-study and accreditation prep that potentially would lose some grants. Do you have an idea of what dollar value we'd be losing in grants, and are those grants things that we have to do, that we would have to replace with another piece of the operational budget if we were to lose those?
Well, I can tell you, at least at the Macomber, if you don't go through the accreditation, we could stand to lose the kindergarten grant, which is about 80 grand. Again, some of these options that you have in front of you, if you do one, then the other one doesn't matter. So if you cut kindergarten to half-time, you make $30,000, you lose the grant, you probably could get away with not worrying about accreditation. We may lose some of the preschool grants as well if we're not accredited. So there's a lot of things at play. And when I'm looking at the high school, if you don't go through the accreditation, it's not just money, but it's what would universities looking at our graduates think of students coming from a non-accredited high school? To me, that's not only putting us in the position of losing funding, but actually hurting the potential of our students going to the schools of their choice.
To the chair. Are we able to split that cost up over 2 years, since we're not actually getting accredited next year? Can you split it?
Unfortunately, you may be able to forestall some of it for a year, but there is no way to get accredited if you don't do the self-study and the pre-studies that you have to do, because when they walk in the door, they're going to say, "Where's your stuff?" And you have to send them updates as you go through the year. And this is the time to do it, or else, they'll know right away that you're not even starting your self-study, so they'll go, "Well, I guess you're not getting accredited."
When is our accreditation actually?
The Macomber was on hold until we had a litigation pending. That's done. So now we have not been accredited, and we need to get on the ball to do that, because we've been given a pass until that got settled. The high school needs to do the self-study this coming year so that they can have the team come and visit and accredit us the following year.
Are there waivers available because of nothing?
Actually, I'm going to continue on that because I actually had the same question about the grants. And the $38,000 for the self-study, that's broken up between high school and MAC?
Yes.
So could you potentially pull out the high school piece, which looks like the most pressing, and hit the other one next year, potentially?
The problem is we put in for those grants early this spring, and they will be saying, "Well, where are you at with accreditation?"
For the MAC as well? Okay.
That's why I didn't separate it. I figured if we're going to do one accreditation,